Since actions are not inherently existent, they are not suitable bases for inherent cessation. And this resolves the final apparent paradox, the tension between the assertion that nothing is permanent and that all action is non-expiring. All phenomena are indeed impermanent, but that entails both that they do not inherently cease, and that their effects are indefinite in scope. Because action does not arise, it is seen to be without essence. Because it is not arisen, it follows that it is non-expiring. This verse emphasizes the second reading of the thesis of the non-expiration of action and echoes the arguments from chapter 7. If action had an essence, it would, without doubt, be eternal. Action would be uncreated. Because there can be no creation of what is eternal.
Moreover, Nagarjuna reminds us, again drawing heavily on the arguments reviewed and redeployed in chapter 7, things with essences don't arise and cease, and can't be related causally to other things. If action existed inherently, it couldn't be initiated. So, if one were trying to preserve the reality of action and karma against the analysis in terms of emptiness, because one viewed that analysis as undermining their genuine existence, it would be pointless to defend the existence of action and karma as inherent existence. If an action were uncreated, fear would arise of encountering something not done. And the error of not preserving one's vows would arise. Nagarjuna here and in 17, draws some of the moral consequences of the nihilistic view of action that seems to follow from the conditions set on its existence by the reificationist. Actions would not come into being through agency and so would have no regular relation to any agents. And so one might find oneself experiencing the consequences of some action one had not performed, or find that it was, in some sense, one's own action. One would not take action seriously as one's own responsibility and would not worry about moral infractions. Monks and nuns would break their vows.
Since morality depends on a distinction between morally positive and morally negative acts, if there were no actions, or if actions could not be thought of as initiated by their agents, there would be no morality. From another perspective, the preservation of vows would be an impossibility anyway, since preserving the vows requires taking action, which would be impossible if action were uncreated. All conventions would then be contradicted, without doubt. It would be impossible to draw a distinction between virtue and evil. Moreover, Nagarjuna argues in the next verse, if actions had essences, they could not cease, and if their karmic consequences had essences, since they would need no conditions to arise, they would just keep arising. Whatever is mature would mature time and time again. If there were essence, this would follow, because action would remain in place. While this action has affliction as its nature, this affliction is not real in itself. If affliction is not in itself, how can action be real in itself? Moreover, Nagarjuna continues, afflicted action is, for the opponent, done essentially in affliction. But given that affliction has already been shown to be empty in the chapter on suffering 12, how could it serve as an essence for action? Action and affliction are taught to be the conditions that produce bodies. If action and affliction are empty, what would one say about bodies?
The opponent replies, however, that action and affliction are referred to in Sutras as the causes of different kinds of rebirth and of different characteristics in rebirths. And since beings are indeed reborn and do indeed have characteristics, how, from the standpoint of a Buddhist view of rebirth, could empty actions and empty karmic consequences explain this? Obstructed by ignorance, and consumed by passion, the experiencer is neither different from the agent nor identical with it. Nagarjuna focuses in his reply on the nature of the individual who is the putative agent of these actions and experiencer of their consequences. The present objection rests on the presupposition that they exist inherently. That is why the problem arises about how empty actions and empty karmic links could be sufficient to link their properties. So Nagarjuna emphasizes that neither an analysis in terms of inherent identity nor one in terms of inherent difference between agent and action will suffice. Both presupposes, incoherently, the inherent existence and hence the possession of an essence, of each term in the putative relation. But this of course recalls the problem posed near the end of chapter 1, how can actual effects arise from empty conditions? And Nagarjuna's reply echoes the reply developed there.
Since this action is not arisen from a condition, nor arisen causelessly, it follows that there is no agent. Since the action does not arise inherently, it lacks inherent existence. Since, as per the discussion of agent and action in Chapter 8, empty actions entail empty agents, there is no inherently existing agent of the kind presupposed by the objector. But the objector continues. If there is no action and agent, where could the fruit of action be? Without a fruit, where is there an experiencer? That is, if we deny the reality of the action and the agent, we seem to deny the reality of the consequences of the action and, hence, the experiencer, whether without understanding and consumed by passion or not. But Nagarjuna's view is not that these things are non-existent, as he emphasized in 17, only that they are empty. So it does follow that the consequences are empty, but that does not entail in any way that they are non-existent. And it follows that the consequence and the karmic link are empty. From this it follows that the reborn individual whose existence and characteristics are determined by this causal sequence is also empty of inherent existence. And if so, there is no problem about how her genesis is dependent upon an empty sequence. Nagarjuna introduces an analogy to explain this situation.
Just as the teacher, by magic, makes a magical illusion, and by that illusion another illusion is created. In that way are an agent and his action. The agent is like the illusion. The action is like the illusion's illusion. That is, we can understand the entire sequence of agent, action, consequences of action, and arising of new agent, whether within a single lifetime or in the context of Buddhist ontology and doctrine across lifetimes, as an entirely empty sequence with entirely empty stages. But that does not prevent its being perceived, or its reality for those who participate therein. Afflictions, actions, bodies, agents, and fruits are like a city of Gandharvas and like a mirage or a dream.
Again, it is important to emphasize that emptiness, rather than being a kind of non-actuality contrasting with empirical reality, is in fact the very condition of empirical reality, and hence the only kind of genuine actuality. Mirages and dreams are actual phenomena, which actually appear, and which have consequences. But that does not mean that they appear to us in a non-deceptive way. Mirages are not water and do not quench thirst, and dream elephants carry no loads. By analogy, samsara, action, karmic link, and consequence, Nagarjuna argues, are real empirical phenomena, but are empty of anything more than conventional existence. While they may appear to exist inherently, either as persistent phenomena, as processes or elements of processes, or as abstract phenomena as per the various opposing views considered in this chapter, they do not so exist. For to exist in those ways would in fact be incoherent. This analysis hence does not entail the non-existence of agent and action, except from the ultimate point of view. Rather it explains how it is possible for them to exist at all.